R. There we go. Welcome, folks, to our second lesson for narrative design. Um, Today we'll be talking about theme, dramatic elements of game design, and a little bit of review with a little bit of talking about assignment one, just reviewing what a screenplay is, and we'll look at an example as well that's going to help. Okay, yeah, that'll be fun. Hopefully, we'll be able to finish maybe 20 minutes early or something like that. If you guys want a break in the middle, we can do a break as well. Um, just let me know. Probably, if we're gonna do a break, we're gonna do it about halfway through, so that will be uh, 2:30 ish, roughly. Okay. So if you can hold out till then, we can do a little break then. All right. Uh, so sometimes I'm gonna reference like a game or a movie or something like that, and you're not gonna know what I'm talking about. Um, I'm gonna try and stay in depth on things that I am introducing to you as a class, but I will also just mention some games or some movies or something like that that I will not elaborate further on. So I'm sorry if it does end up leaving you a little bit in the dark. You may feel like you're missing some extra knowledge or something like that. No, there's just some things where I'm expecting a lot of you will have an idea about XYZ game or media object or something like that, but I may not have the time to explain everything about it to you. But what I will do is I'll jump around to a bunch of different types of games so that hopefully you're not going to feel alienated for super long with me talking about a game that you've never heard of or don't really know or not familiar with. I'll also try to be neutral on these sorts of things. But yeah, you let me know if you do feel like you're lost on something, you haven't heard of something, you don't know what terminology I'm using. I have this general idea of what I think you guys know and what you don't know, or this general idea of the kind of vocabulary that you use or don't use. But please correct me if I'm saying a word that you don't know or talking about a game you don't know or something like that, right? Like, do talk about that. Also, I'll try not to give spoilers, but yeah, I'll try not to give spoilers. And I won't really talk too much about new games with spoilers. Okay, but it may happen, and other people may talk about it as well. Other people may give spoilers, but try not to as well. If it's an old game or an old movie, all bets are off. You can spoil it as much as you want. Okay, but let's just say nothing in the last like 2 years. Zelda is the princess. Oh no, so many spoilers. Um, Jeez, guys, I told you not to. Stop it. Okay. Uh, so let's talk about theme. At least I know you guys are here. You're being active here. Uh, okay. Theme. Borderlands is not themed around services or uh, border security. By the way, um, but yeah, let's talk about theme. When I say this word, I want to know what kind of thing you guys are thinking. So I want you guys to discuss here. So why don't you guys tell me what are some examples of a game with powerful theme and what enforced that theme? Where do we get the sense from that theme? Okay. So anyone want to chime in there? Uh, I may pause the recording because it's going to be a little slow. Let's pause it just for a minute. Oh, wow. Okay, a lot of people want to speak. Great. So you guys know how to do this. You can raise your hand basically, and then I can invite you on stage, and then you can say stuff. And that's fine. Please, everyone who should ask, that's fine. Good. All right, Zach, what's up? What's an example?
I would say Dead Space,
Okay.
the first one.
Okay, so Dead
And
Space 1. Okay, what was a theme that you want to pick out from there? There can be multiple, but what is the one you want to talk about?
I would just say it's the overall environment that enforced a feeling to kind of give you more interpretation on the theme, if that makes sense.
Okay. What's the theme though?
Horror. But I guess that's a genre, but I guess the
Mm.
theme would be dark, grimy,
Mm.
uncomfortable. Or is that more of a feeling? I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, yeah. So what you're describing is more of the that is a genre, okay, and the look, okay, but that's not what we're looking for in terms of theme. And thank you for being brave because other people are thinking this too, and that's not what I'm looking for theme. That's why I'm asking
All right.
questions. Yeah. Uh, so let's see what else have we got here. Uh, Leija, do you want to speak?
Hello. I think the theme of the game I'm thinking of is Outlast One, and I think the
Okay.
theme would probably be the feeling of being set within the asylum, and how everything within the asylum is set within the 80s or 70s theme of um, mind control.
Okay. Mind control as a theme. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. How? How do we get this?
Um. Pardon.
How do we get this idea of mind control?
Because of the different the props around the world. Like for example, the I forgot the name of the specific device, but it would control the minds of the asylum patients there. So with that, you'll know, oh, the theme is the CIA. It's MK Ultra. It's all these experiments that's going
Okay.
on in this facility.
Okay. 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 So themes including basically treating patients in an asylum like they're test subjects, like they
Yeah.
are, and like they are a blank canvas to control, and yeah, mind control, the suggestion and the control that way. Okay, okay, okay. So we're getting better there. So themes, folks, if we're listening to the type of discussion we're having, themes are not genre. So theme is not genre. Horror is not a theme, right? Uh, Fantasy, sci-fi are not themes. That's not what we're looking for. So what we're looking for are a particular idea or a message or just something to explore. It doesn't even have to be a message. It can just be something we're examining, right? It doesn't need to be trying to make a statement on it, but it needs to be something that it's making us think about it. So let's see what else have we got here. Lucas,
You haven't removed us yet, by the way.
oh, that's fine. You're staying here. So just the more people we invite to speak, the more people are just standing on stage at once. I'm not gonna kick you
Got
out.
it.
I think a theme we could like that's very used nowadays. I think everybody can relate to. I think is just the cowboy theme. I know
Okay.
you mentioned it not being a genre, but the theme of itself is like stealing stuff, specifically Red Dead, and like we could say that the I guess you could say the payday in quotations aspect of the game where we steal stuff, we become an outlaw and or a good outlaw, and we make money for the game, and then we develop the story and all that stuff can also translate to GTA and other
Okay.
games that have similar aspects.
Okay. Okay. Crime. So you could say that
Yeah,
a theme is crime. I
crime.
guess. It now there is a lot more narrative pieces to be pulled out of something like Red Dead Redemption or Grand Theft Auto, but they have their own things. Okay, so it's not exactly what we're looking for because again, cowboy is a little bit more of a genre. Let's see what else have we got. Connor H.
Hello.
Hello.
The game that I wanted to bring up is it wasn't super popular when it released, but it was called Duskers. It's a
Ah.
game where you are piloting a spaceship and salvaging derelict ships with a team of drones. And the big theme on that one was isolation, because everything was like you're behind a computer monitor and you're watching your drones go out and do things. And the game has like a horror subgenre, where like stuff happens to your drones, but there's no connection between you and them. You just kind of start connecting with them because they're the only connection you have in the game. So you feel bad when like suddenly something happens on the ship and you have to retreat and they just start dying. But it's very isolating because everything is like through computer monitors, so you can't just immediately take action.
Right.
And you're
Okay.
separated from them because you're always on your ship and the drones are doing the work.
Right. So you're describing a game with a lot of that conveys a feeling of isolation and a theme of isolation through how the player plays the game, and the fact that they have a very little sensory connection to the world. It's kind of sensory deprivation. That's good. That's good. No, that's right. That's good. And the theme itself isn't horror, even though it's a horror game. That's the horror isn't the theme, or isn't a powerful theme. Um, there's a mood there, yeah, of horror, but that's not exactly a theme. So yes, yes, good, 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 good. Okay, cool. Narratively, I want us to be thinking more narratively, folks. This is the narrative design class. I want us to be thinking about that. So making your player or your audience think a little bit. David, are you still interested in speaking?
Yeah. So the game I wanted to like propose was Knights of the Old Republic, and like a central theme in that game is identity and fate, and that plays into the genre of the game being an RPG. So your choices matter, and like you make a bunch of these choices throughout the game, and then the central plot twist of the game is that the main villain of the game is you. So now it has you as the audience like wondering, okay, do I follow in the footsteps of my past life, or do I think I can really change and become someone different?
That's a really nice one. That's really powerful. And then you as a player, you have control of building who your character is. So you participate in that theme of developing your identity. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really nice. So that's very powerful. That's very solid right there. We're getting a lot of discussion, folks. A lot of people. This is good. Saya, hello, Saya.
Hello? Oh,
Did
that's working.
did you want to give us your theme?
Uh, my game would be specifically the two most recent God of War games with its overall theme of becoming better than your current self, which is mostly shown through the interactions between the characters, especially Atreus and Kratos together, as they're trying to overcome. Well, Kratos tried to overcome his past and become something other than a god killer, and Atreus is trying to find out what he really is.
Yeah, so in the past, Kratos, your player character, or our hero, right, was not much of a hero. He was pretty bad. He was well, pretty controversial, right? He was a god killer. He was driven by, what would you say, rage. Um, Rage was even a mechanic in the game, basically, right? Um, he's just so angry, and he had so much energy that came from his anger. Now in the newer games, he has to mature, and he has a son, and he needs to try to pass on the good and try to not pass on his rage and his way of solving things through violence all the time, right? Restraint, strength, but restraint. He needs to find a way to be a better person, and um, connecting with his son and helping his son also be a better person than he is an important part of that. So that's really cool. Yeah, that's neat. Um, just he needs to learn to channel his energy in the right way. So, redemption might be a theme there. Um, anger management is a theme, right? Generational trauma is a theme. Those are the themes that we're looking at, right? Not adventure. Adventure is not the theme, though there is adventure for sure. You know, RPG is not the theme. RPG is part of the genre. Cool.
Theme is a message then?
Yeah, it's a message. Although not everything has to have a distinct message when exploring a theme. You can have a theme without, let's say, trying to have a moral to the story, right? You can have a theme that you're exploring without trying to tell the audience this is the correct answer or something like that. You know what I mean? You don't need to be trying to convince people one way or another. Will, I didn't know your name was spelled with one L. Huh. Okay.
Yeah, it's a Dutch thing.
Oh, it's a Dutch thing. Interesting.
Yeah.
What would you like
the
to talk
game
about?
I was The Last of Us.
Mm.
I would the I'd say the theme of that game is being able to cope with loss. Because from the beginning of the story, Joel loses his daughter, who's very close to him, and throughout the entirety of the story, he's struggling to let people in and care for someone else upon that death. And to that end, he's very aggressive towards people who try to get close to him, like Ellie. But and throughout the story, he's learning to cope with the death of his own daughter and being able to let people in.
So Joel, story-wise, Joel lost his daughter, but then he found someone else who basically helps him cope a little bit by becoming sort of his daughter for some time. And part of the story is him learning to come to terms with the fact that his actual daughter, isn't coming back. Is that right?
Yeah.
So that's good. That's really good. And the game does that through cutscenes mostly.
Through cutscenes to small dialogue between characters when playing. There's optional dialogue options, and it sort of helps
Right.
build that theme of he's putting on a tough act, but his walls are slowly coming down and starting to open up again.
That's cool. That's really nice. Thank you. So let's see. Okay, there's one more person. Michael. Michael, hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sweet. Yeah, the game I was just gonna piggyback on The Last of Us because The Last of Us 2, I think, has a really good narrative story in that of consequence. Where
Okay.
the first game you kind of go through it and Joel's just killing everybody he can and you just think oh, I won the game, that's what I had to do. But the second game makes you pay for those actions kind of thing, and it's all about the consequence of your actions, and that's where the game kind of takes you through Ellie losing everybody that she loves and going on this revenge quest where realistically that's not what she should be doing. She should just understand that there's consequences for Joel's actions.
Right. Right. Just, you killed a lot of people. That's not going to make peace. That's probably going to make the opposite of peace.
And she's kind of fighting it through the game too, where everyone's telling her that she shouldn't be doing this, but she's still doing it because she thinks it's what she has to do. But everything in her life is telling her that this is the wrong thing to do, kind of thing.
Right. Okay. So consequence, and the player has to be along for that ride of experiencing the consequence for presumably what they participated in the first game. They were complicit in helping Joel kill in the first game, and then they played the second game, and now they're told, yeah, what you did was not good, and you shouldn't keep fighting it. You should be able to accept that what you did was wrong, and there's going to be consequences for that. That's cool. That's really cool. So how did this theme manifest in the gameplay? Was it all of the just what people were saying, they were saying that you shouldn't be doing this? What else?
I think the way that and I actually think it was really smart the way they did it was, I don't know if anybody's played it, but I'm going to spoil it. the end of the game, the first game, essentially, you kill the doctor that's supposed to find the cure in Ellie kind of thing, and then that doctor ends up being, a father, and they make you play as his daughter in the game, so they make you see the story from her perspective, and it's just like it's a really good way to storytell of like making you see the story from the other side. And sorry if nobody's played it. The game's like
You just,
4 years old. So.
it is fairly old now, but just look at all the people typing in chat. No.
It's 4
Okay.
years old.
Yeah, okay. See, this is, I don't know what to say here, because we need to be able to talk about stories, guys.
Yeah, it's a really good story.
We do
And
need
I
to be
don't
able
know.
to talk about stories. We can't just say, everything's going to be a spoiler. So, I don't know. I'm sorry. It's okay. But this is really neat. So they directly tied the connection between the first and second game, and they drew parallels between the father-daughter dynamic in both games as well, right? So that's pretty clear. Yeah, that's pretty clear and very intentional, right? So neat. Wow. Okay. At least everyone's active. At least we woke everyone up with spoilers. Okay, thank you, folks. So this is great discussion. I love this. You guys who are here on stage, you can stay on stage. I only ask that you mute your mic in case there's noise or something like that. But you can feel free to unmute and speak at any time. And if you're not on the stage, feel free to raise your hand. If we end up with everyone on the stage, that's totally fine. We'll all be raised up on the panel ourselves together. Yeah, so even for those without a PlayStation, they still, a lot of people still experience the story because of the TV series. So I think it's pretty fair. I'll be honest, guys, I probably am not ever going to get another PlayStation product ever. I'm sorry, but I think I'm moving on from that. That's all. So anyway, let's talk about Death Stranding. So I'm gonna give my own example for you guys. We're developing our idea of what we mean by theme, right? That it's a central idea. That there can be multiple themes. There could be multiple key ideas that are being explored. Things that you want people to think about, basically. Okay, so let's talk about this game. Honestly, if I play the trailer for this, it's not going to answer any questions at all, but I think it's interesting anyway, so I'm going to play some of the trailer for this, okay? So let's just play it. I think for that, in order to hear the audio, I might need to might need to do a screen share. So let's do screen share. Another dad sim game. Yeah. Did you guys ever notice there's a lot of games out there about a father looking for their child? From developers who have been working on guys who are like 30 something ish, 30 to 50 ish, who've been working on their games for like 8 years. It's crazy.
BB, don't worry. It's okay. I'll always be with you.
See the sunset.
All right. So can you guys hear and see?
Is ending.
Yeah, we can kind of see it.
There's no
Okay. No problem. Oh no, I know what the problem is. I shared the wrong screen, guys. Come on. That's stupid. I shouldn't have done that. There we go. There we go. Freeze! Cool. That's That's what I was looking
So
for.
let
I would put the subtitles on, but the subtitles are like automatically generated and they're not very good. So I'm not gonna do that.
I'll stay with you by your side. Close your tired eyes. I'll wait, and soon I'll see your smile in a dream.
Tell me, Sam, what does America mean to you? Way my dad made it sound, we were something special. The glue that held it all together. More than a nation, a symbol of freedom and hope. We could bring it all back if we kept on making deliveries and connecting people. He was sure of it.
Sam, we want you to go west and finish what Emily started. The people she left behind have been hard at work, setting up chiral network terminals. But these terminals are still isolated. We need you to bring them online. And for that, you'll need a Cupid. This is how we'll rebuild our country.
I'll stay with you in your mind every single day. I'll wait.
She's fine.
And soon we strike
Extinction's on hold for now.
I'll be waiting for you on the beach.
What's the other mark from?
Clingy woman in a cave.
I see. Aphenphosmphobia.
Okay, so guys, if I post this video on YouTube and it gets taken down, it's probably because of copyright problems. So I might stop it here. Okay. But don't worry. Even if I kept playing the full 8 minutes of this, it wouldn't answer that many. It really wouldn't answer a whole lot about what the game is. But you can get an idea of some of the themes here. You can get an idea of some of what's going on. Basically, any of this stuff here, these are themes. You know, the trailer is giving us a hint about what this media object is about. A theme is, what is your story about? What is your game about? That's what a theme is, really. That's the simplest way I could describe it. What is it about? And preferably, what is it about at the deeper level, right? Not, it's about a Italian plumber on the screen, but a little bit more than that. Okay, what is going on? Oh, the chat is not displaying properly anymore. Hang on. Let's try that. Virtual camera. Ta-da. Okay. There is you. Okay, cool. What are you guys doing? We've got so much energy today. Jeez. So much energy for spamming nonsense.
What?
Okay, so let me try and describe this game to you guys. So that we can talk about it and just think about it a little bit. It's really interesting. If you're not sold on it already, this game is a game heavy in themes. This game is all theme, way more theme than plot, way more theme than dialogue, more theme than anything. Everything in the game, every name of a character, every name of an object or something like that is relating to the themes that are trying to be explored here. So the ideas that we're trying to get across, that the creators of this game are trying to get across to us, the audience. Okay, so in this game, the themes include death and life and afterlife. Okay, so why is that? In this world, let's talk about the premise. So the premise of this game world is that we discovered that the afterlife is real. Humanity discovered that the afterlife is a thing, and that there is a place that human souls have to travel through after death to get to the afterlife. So when a person dies, their soul leaves their body. It travels through this place called the beach, and it moves on to the afterlife. We don't know what the afterlife is like, but we did learn about the beach. Humans discovered the beach. It's a real thing. It's measurable. It's this space between life and death. And we discovered an interesting property about the beach where souls travel through. Time doesn't flow like it does here. So in the beach is timeless, which means that we can, if you put something into the beach, it will not age, basically, right? And what we've done is we've managed to find a way to tap into it to use it for high-speed internet. So instead of sending data packets as electrical pulses through a wire or light pulses through a fiber optic cable, we decided that we were going to send data packets through the space between life and death, and then pop it out on the other side, where we would have instant data transfer because time does not pass on the beach. Okay, so we're living our lives, exploiting the space between life and death as our high-speed internet provider carrier. Okay, and at some point something happens, and now the connection between the beach and the afterlife has been severed. So now souls, when they leave the body, they try to travel through the beach, and they cannot reach the afterlife. They are left stuck, and they need to decide what to do. They may turn around and head straight back to their body. And if a soul returns to its body, then it will transform the body into some kind of weird spooky ghost thing called a beached thing. It's invisible. You cannot see it. It has an umbilical cord connecting it to something. And it is made out of antimatter. So if it touches something that is made of matter, there is an annihilation event. And there's basically a giant implosion. Like a kilometer-wide radius of space disappears. Matter just goes away. So big explosions. Unfortunately, we were not prepared for this to happen, and a chain reaction of terrible explosions happened all over the world. Okay? And so the United States is now full of craters because it's just basically been nuked thousands of times by these antimatter annihilation events caused by beached things, caused by souls returning to their body after death. So now we live after that major event that blew up everything. Okay? Everything is destroyed. We live in the strange time after that. So there's very few humans left, but they do exist. There is no major population centers anymore. Only small pockets of humans in maybe a small settlement or living completely alone in a lot of cases as well. Because people are afraid to get near anyone else. If you're within a 1 kilometer radius of a dead body, and that dead body turns into a beach thing, and it touches something alive, then you're going to be you're going to disappear. So that's not great. So it leads to distrust. Everyone wants to stay away from each other. Okay. The United States of America is not much of a country anymore, but you do technically live there, and you, as a player, are you're actually the son of the U.S. president, who's recently passed, and the first thing that you have to do is carry that dead body of your mother, the U.S. president, to an incinerator to destroy the body, because that is the only way to stop a body from becoming a beached thing. You can destroy the body so that the soul cannot return to the body. And then the soul will have to just be stuck. It'll be stuck wandering around the beach. It can't come back. And why do you have to do that? Why do you have to deliver your mother's body to the incinerator? Well, that's part of your job, because you, as a player, Sam is your name, you are kind of the UPS delivery driver of this universe, or like the U.S. Postal Service, you know? You deliver packages for a living, and you also deliver corpses for a living, or take them away, take out the trash. That is your job. That is what you do. You also happen to be literally allergic to human touch, not interested in socializing with other people, but also literally physically allergic to getting close to other people. So not just that he doesn't want to be at a party, he will break out into a rash if anyone touches him. Okay, crazy. Why does he have this baby attached to him? Guys, it won't stop. There's so much stuff. He has a baby attached to him because people who do his job, if they want to survive, they need to avoid beached things. They don't want to touch a ghost, because one of those ghosts will cause an explosion. So we've developed this technology that exploits a dead baby, a baby that is stillborn, half between life and death, that is able to see the dead. So we connect to that baby, and that baby will help us avoid the ghosts. It doesn't stop, guys. It really doesn't stop. The baby is attached to you, and you carry it, and you actually do form a bond with it, right? So your character is afraid to form bonds, but he does end up forming a bond with this baby. He's carrying this baby as though it was his own child, as though he's pregnant with this baby. He's connected to it through an umbilical cord. You know, everything is designed very intentionally. And he does actually form a bond with this with this baby, as he goes and delivers packages. So you, as a player, you're delivering packages, and the other thing that you're doing is you are connecting people to the internet. You're connecting people to social media. So people are separated, and you are trying to rebuild. You're trying to build connections between settlements. You're trying to make it easier for people to connect to each other, for people to get food, water, you know, stuff like that, but also for people to talk to each other. So you are hooking people up to the internet again. And as you do this job, you get paid in likes, social media likes. You get thumbs up. Characters in the game will often literally give you, the player, a thumbs up on the screen, and that's when you get rewarded likes as your currency in the game. There's no money. You get likes. You get paid in likes. Some people out in that world are so addicted to likes that they just do anything to get likes, regardless of if it's helpful or harmful to humans. They're just addicted to likes. That's a whole different story. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff, guys. There's a whole bunch of stuff. So, as you can probably tell, this game is very loaded with themes. Body and soul, birth, death, afterlife, the internet and social media addiction, isolation, the social distancing. Although this game came out before COVID, these people were already social distancing. They're avoiding each other like the plague. Bonds and attachment, and I think above all, one of the primary themes here is not being able to move on. So people getting stuck on something, stuck on some trauma, stuck on some unfinished business, stuck on something, right? So people get stuck on something and they're not able to move on. They're stranded, just like those souls on the beach. All the characters in the game are named after the role that they play, rather than really just a name. Most of them have a specific name. Okay, so Sam, or your player character, his name is Sam Porter Bridges. Porter meaning he carries stuff, like he's transporting items, right? And Bridges because he's building bridges. And his name is that. Okay. You'll meet another character named Mama, and you'll never guess, but she is a mother, or she was going to be a mother. You'll meet a guy. What's his name? Deadman. His name is just Deadman. A lot of stuff, guys. There's a lot of stuff. There's also a lot of celebrities in here. There's a movie director in the game. Like his face is scanned and everything. You know, you saw all these actors, right? Like Troy Baker and Mads Mikkelsen and whatever. This game is wild, guys. It's so strange. You should check it out. Anyway, yes, Guillermo del Toro is in the game and he's a main character. He's good friends with him and Hideo Kojima are good friends. You know. Just you guys are nuts. You guys are crazy. Okay, let's move on. Okay, we spent a good amount of time. If you guys like, I heard you mention Dead Space. Dead Space is Silent Hill, but in space. So remember, guys, these games have a lot in common. What they don't, the thing that they have in common thematically is not the zombies. They do both have zombies in them, but that's not the themes. That's not really the themes that we're talking about. Dead wife simulators. Well, there you go. There you go. Yeah. So, remember, folks, as well, though, not only is your game what you say it's about and what you intentionally put in there, but your game also contains subtext. Whether or not you intended to, your game has subtext. If you pay attention to it when you're creating it, you can make a very deep narrative and deep theme and something quite memorable and powerful. People won't know exactly, most people won't know exactly why, and the people who are pretty clever will know why, but most people will still feel it, that you've put thought into every square centimeter of the game. Okay? So subtext is reading between the lines of your game. Okay? If you pay attention, then it can really strengthen things. If you don't pay attention, if you ignore that your game will have subtext, whether or not you intend to, then at best you're going to make something mediocre. At worst, you could make something very offensive without realizing, without understanding. And it's not an excuse to say you didn't realize it. If you made something offensive but you didn't realize it, it's still problematic. So you're still gonna have to pay attention to it anyway. You know, if you hurt someone by accident, you still hurt them, right? So there is still, you know, in a lot of situations, you're still to blame there. So pay attention, right? Do your due diligence, okay? If you ignore subtext, you could end up just with something a little bit boring. That's also a possibility. If you have a game where you're killing a lot of characters in that game, a lot of human beings, okay, and they happen to be a certain type, because let's say your character models that you only have character models of Chinese people, then it's a little suspicious. You might not have intended to, but then your game happens to be about killing Chinese people. Why? Like, why? That's a problem. It might have been complete chance, right? Yeah, please be careful, guys. Be careful. It depends. It depends on the situation, right? It depends on the situation. Okay. So, think about what your game mechanics say. Think about what your character model designs say. Things like that, right? Your sprites. It will have a meaning. Okay, whether you intend to or not. Monopoly has meaning. Okay, what do you do in Monopoly? You collect money, you buy land, you use that land as capital to get you more money, to get you more land. So you get richer and richer and richer, right? So what does that mean? That talks about how you do destroy families. You destroy families and friendships in Monopoly. That's true. That's not what the game is supposed to be about, but that's what the gameplay does. Right? And it checks out. It fits. So yeah, the game says the rich gets richer. The rich will get richer. And the poor get poorer. Sucks to suck. You know, if you're poor, you don't have the money to buy this property, then somebody else is going to buy it, and then you're just going to have to pay rent your whole life. Okay? Subtext-wise, in Monopoly, your initial advantage mostly comes down to luck of where you land on the board. If you land on a good spot, if you land on, you know, if you get the right stuff at the right time, you don't get really that much control in where you end up in life. It just happens, right? So you roll the dice and then you just end up different places, and then you may have an opportunity presented to you, right? So if you happen to have $20,000 or $50,000 or something like that in the year 1980 in Toronto, and then you bought a house with that money, now you would have a property worth maybe $2 million, right? Too bad. You weren't lucky. So you didn't do that. Okay. What can you do? It's not a skill issue. It's just that's how it happened. You're right? That's random chance. Okay? And that's kind of how Monopoly works too. Sucks to suck, I guess, guys, right? There's not really a skill involved in Monopoly, to be honest. There's a little, but not a lot. So that does say something. If there is skill involved, it's because you're cheating, and then that's a different message entirely. Because, you know, if you're trying to roll the right number that you want or something like that. Yeah, you should have bought a bunch of Bitcoin when you were a baby. Too bad. But you shouldn't have bought other things that were a scam. You should have bought that one that happened to not be a scam. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So, themes and subtext. Where do they come from? They come from the game mechanics. They come from your life experiences and how they reflect in your style of game making. They come from the media and literature that you have consumed, right? the things that you have seen, the things that you've consumed. Okay, and that brings me to another topic. Where do you get all this stuff? Where do these ideas come from? Right? You have this brand new pitch for this game that you want to make, right? This roguelike RPG with crafting mechanics or whatever. Where did this idea come from? Okay, this came from a combination of all of your experiences before. All of your experiences before, they include other media, other games, other movies, stuff like that. So I want to introduce you guys to a concept put out there by an author named Jean de Baudrillard, a philosopher, you could say. Okay? Who says that life imitates art. And art imitates life. And life imitates art. So what does that mean? When you develop your idea of what normal human interactions are or something like that, you're going to be basing that off of other things that you've observed, okay? So you have developed an idea of what a healthy romantic relationship looks like, and that may come from movies you've watched where you see, you know, romantic relationships in a movie or on television. That may come from other people that you've seen, and those other people may be collecting things from some books that they read, some social media that they saw online, stuff like that, right? And all of these things combined together, right? So Jean de Baudrillard, if I'm saying that even remotely correctly, French guy, whatever, right? He tells us, he writes in this publication, Simulacra and Simulation, he writes that we live in a simulation, that you are currently in a simulation. What he means by that is not that we live in the Matrix, not exactly that we live in the Matrix, okay, but that we live in a world, in a society built on copies of things that came before. You copy the behavior of those that came before. The behavior is affected by media. The media is affected by behavior. Life imitates art. Art imitates life. Okay? So he argues that reality has been replaced by signs and symbols. Okay? A simulation includes stuff like you are hearing a simulacra, a copy of my voice. My voice has been transcribed into a digital signal and then sent to you, right? A copy is a simulacra. Okay? A map is a copy. A map, when you look at a map of a location, let's say China, okay? Then what you are looking at is a simulation, a fake creation of a place. So it's trying to recreate this location so that you can navigate around using the map that will hopefully translate into navigating around in the world. So that is a type of simulation. And maps aren't always the most accurate. Guys, did you ever see a land border in real life? The lines there, are they really there? Or is it just maybe we happen to put a bunch of structures on that line? You know, humans, we built towers and fences and things like that, right? But a land border is just something we made up, right? Sometimes it's a river, but we just decide there's an imaginary line in the middle of that river where one side of the river is one country and then another side is another country, or a province or something like that, right? We divide a province by the river, so one side is Ontario and the other side is Quebec or whatever, right? Um, there's a whole lot of things that we don't really seem to realize have affected our world view, right? Our understanding of the world is based on the media that we've consumed. We watch television, we look at the news, we have this idea of what a place looks like that is based not just on our personal experience, but also all of this social media that we've consumed related to a place, and so on, right? We get our news filtered through tons of different sources. We even in entertainment, we share memes that are based on a film, and the film is based on a book, and the book is based on another book. Combination of things, right? An artist was inspired by XYZ, which inspired, and the artist's work inspired W, and then W inspired ABC, so on, right? Everything goes along. You remix media as memes on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram and things like that. This meme of Sonic that has been posted is a culture object that has replicated itself and copied itself in a few ways. This image of Sonic is funny because it's a poor copy of another image of Sonic, kind of thing, right? And it's recreating itself. And this is filling your idea. This is filling your head with different, a certain perspective, right? So everyone lives in their own kind of world that is built from all of these symbols that we've created, and that's interesting. Basically, Jean de Baudrillard says that basically nothing is new anymore, that nothing is new under the sun. And this was a while back. Okay, he's writing this in the time of radio and television. Okay. We're not even in the time of television anymore. Nobody watches television now. We stream. It's crazy how different things are. So just think about those influences, right? There's influences. There's always something. Okay. We'll get back around to the Matrix. That'll be a fun little thing to talk about as well. All right. I want to talk about the dramatic elements of game design. So what is the dramatic elements of game design? If you were in my game design class, then you heard me talking about the formal elements of game design. The dramatic elements of game design go along as a companion to that. Okay? They are complementary. They work together. So the dramatic elements of game design are just elements that make a game interesting. They're not all required. You could use only one. You could use one or two. You could use all five. It's optional, okay? But these are the things that make games exciting, things that make games interesting emotionally. They make an emotional experience. So, should your game have all of them? Maybe. Depends on your budget, right? Does it have to have them? Absolutely not. Let's talk about them in order. There's challenge, play, premise, character, and story. So these are things that excite us, right? Challenge. What is difficult about the game? Sometimes it could be the combat. Sometimes it could be a non-combat game, a game that doesn't have combat. Or it could be that the game has combat, but the combat isn't really the main challenge, right? Maybe it's the story decisions. Maybe it's the challenge is learning to play the game, right? Maybe it's a puzzle game and the challenge is a little bit more intellectual. Maybe it's a more action game and the challenge is a little bit more in terms of reaction time, just your speed and decisiveness. Could be that as well. How does your game affect the player's personal narrative? So think about how you can create personal narrative through challenge. Some people have really powerful stories that they can tell about a game because it was hard, right? Not because it had a good story, but just because it was difficult in an interesting way. There were some interesting challenges presented to you. You had to figure them out. They were blocking you from achieving your goal, and you solved it. You beat it. You know, you beat that boss, whatever. And it contributes to your personal narrative. How do you make good challenges? Okay, good challenges with good emotional impact in a game need to have a clear goal. You need to know what you're actually working towards. If it's a conflict like a boss battle, it's pretty easy. Your goal is to make that guy not alive anymore. Okay, there's your goal. That's your goal. That's all you're trying to do. Okay, you might have different goals. Maybe your goal is to convince that guy to give up his ways and change his ways. And that could be your challenge. Okay, whatever. But you need a goal. Then you need a clear path to actually achieve that goal. So it might happen to be that making that guy not alive anymore is pretty easy to figure out because you have a weapon. Okay, all right. So you can do that. Convincing that guy to change his ways, that might be harder, but you might still also beat him up anyway while trying to convince him. Challenges can include narrative decisions where it's hard to know, you have to think about it, right? Like you have to think about how making a certain decision might affect the characters in the future, right? So you could be in a survival game and you need to decide, should we forage for food in the middle of the night, or should we stay and fortify the camp to protect ourselves against attacks from the wild, right? What should we do? That can be a decision, and may not even be like an action that you have to do. It might not be even an action game. So it could be just something where you have to consider your options, right? Something difficult, right? Something that makes you feel that there's a challenge to overcome. Some games can be very challenging on purpose in a way that is almost or definitely supposed to be frustrating. You guys ever heard of a game like this, Getting Over It? Or there's another game like Only Up. There's a few games. There's a lot of games like this now. Or from way back, QWOP, right? Looked easy. Okay, so it's a game that's supposed to be extremely difficult. QWOP is probably the OG. Probably. Yeah, there's QWOP. That's QWOP right there. The rage-inducing game. So it's an interesting one because you do have a clear goal. You do know what you need to do, but it's just hard to do it, and that's fun. That's literally all you need. Another important factor is that the game basically it tells you that it knows it's being unreasonably difficult, so you're in on the joke together, right? So developer of Getting Over It, it's very obvious it's supposed to hurt you. It doesn't lie to you. At the very beginning, in the description here, it says this game is painful. This game is going to induce rage. Okay, this game is hard. Okay, and you need to get over it. You need to do the hard thing, even though it's hard, just because you gotta see it through. Okay, and it does have a message, right? Honestly, still, even a game like that, it's easier than doing a lot of stuff in real life. Life is way harder still. Unfortunately, if life was as difficult as this game, Getting Over It with Bent Foddy, then it would be pretty good. It would be pretty easy. But sometimes it really sets you back. Saya, that's the wrong spelling of heroin, but that's fine. Yeah, that heroine means a woman. But I don't know. Maybe that's what you meant. It's fine. It's fine. I'm sorry. So, folks, think about if you want to create a drama, narrative drama and emotion through challenge. Think about the goal, the clear path to victory. That person may know what they need to do, but they know it's difficult, right? I know what must be done, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to do that. Or I don't know exactly what must be done, but I'm been given the tools so that I can figure out what needs to be done. Those are ways that feel good as challenge. What doesn't feel good as a challenge is you don't know what you're supposed to do, you don't know how to get anywhere where you're supposed to get, that kind of thing. That's what makes a challenge more frustrating, right? Imagine I made a game and I just said, okay, your goal in the game is to win the game. And then you say, how do you win the game? I give you a single die, right? With 6 sides. Okay, and then you say, okay, so what do I do? And I say, win the game. I don't tell you how to win. That's not helpful. Okay, what if I tell you further? What if I do give you a goal? Okay, your goal is to roll a 6. But then it's still not an interesting challenge because even though it's difficult, there's not a clear path. There's nothing you can do that is within your control that can help you achieve that. Right? So to make a more fun and dramatic game, you do want to put it inside the player's control, right? These are the places where games are easier than real life because in real life you don't get those goals and you don't get those clear paths. You don't know what to do to achieve that goal. But in a game, what we want to do is make it clear and give clear feedback on if you're on the right track or not. That's really good. I don't know about you guys, but I have some really great video game war stories, right? Just stuff that happened in a particular game, a moment that sticks with me that was really exciting and funny because stuff went terribly wrong or because it was just like there was a really let's say dramatic boss battle that I had been working on for a few days and I finally beat the boss, that kind of thing, right? I'm sure you have them. I played DayZ before. It's like a zombie survival type game. That game had me shaking the first time I played it, for sure. The thing that scared me more was not the zombies, but was when I found out there was another human in the same building as me, and it wasn't my friend. That was scary. I had a lot of fun playing Armored Core 6 and fighting that first big boss, Balteus, I think it's called. That was pretty good. Learning its moveset, solving the problems. It's great. So guys, this might spark a lot of difficult discussion. Should difficult games have difficulty settings? I'm gonna stick to difficult games, and there's no right or wrong answer here. There's no right or wrong answers here, guys. Let's talk about it. Gosh darn, the chat is exploding. Jeez. Oh my gosh. Can
I say something?
Sure, go ahead.
I find when you add difficulty settings, it can hinder the actual game and what it's meant to do, because then you have to organize and create the game around those settings instead of based off of the challenge itself.
Okay.
So it can kind of hurt the game in the long run. So I think it's just better to target a specific audience and stick with it instead of everyone by putting difficulty sliders.
Right. So from from a game developer perspective, from like the developer side, it can make it difficult to tailor your experience because you have to be making multiple versions of your game, essentially. Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, and I guess too for the user, when you have games with difficulty sliders, the hardest difficulty is not as hard as games that don't have a slider at all, even when the game might not necessarily be intentionally hard. At least
I
from
think
what I've seen.
That's just anecdotal evidence. That doesn't mean that fundamentally that's a flaw, right?
That's true.
Yeah, that's not fundamentally an issue with difficulty settings, right? Uh, so, but that is interesting. Okay, right? There's definitely also games that let you turn up the difficulty, guys. Difficulty sliders don't always go down. A lot of them go up as well. Some people
Can I
say
add
the
something
playing
else
field
to
is
that?
level with one difficulty setting. So is it level with many different types of players? If you think about it, there's some players who might have motor control issues, accessibility issues, right? Who have difficulty pressing a button or a certain button repeatedly or something like that. I wonder.
Am I able to add something?
Yeah, of course. Yes, go ahead, Will.
To what Zach was saying, with Souls-style games like Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Bloodborne, there is no difficulty slider, but it's not. The game's designed at a certain difficulty for the player to learn the fighting style and mechanics of each enemy, and like it's designed around losing and learning. And the more you learn, the better you do. So, like, I feel like games like that shouldn't have a difficulty slider, like to make it easier or harder. It should just be that same difficulty because it encourages the player to learn the mechanics of the enemy they're fighting.
So you don't want the player to feel tempted to change the difficulty.
Yeah, no, like if you're struggling with one particular enemy and you just want to lower the difficulty just so you can beat him, it's not really helping you learn anything.
Well, it's also possible to just not let you change the difficulty in the middle of the game, right? Or to keep it
Yeah.
consistent. But you're feeling that players shouldn't be trusted with that choice, because if given the option, they might just make it easier for themselves, right? They might not be able to help
Yeah.
themselves, right? Okay, so some people feel that a player can't be trusted like that.
I got another thing.
Some people have issues with the implementation of difficulties. That it's kind of hard for developers to make good difficulty settings because at the harder difficulties, the enemies are just damage sponges or something like that, right? So some people have issues with that kind of implementation, which again ties back to the difficulty of designing a game with multiple settings. That's very true. It is more work to make more difficulty options. In a lot of ways, it's more work to balance that. So that's true.
Could I say one more thing?
Yes, of course.
So I think too, when they add difficulty sliders, when let's say you start at a base and then it's just going up from there, a lot of them they just add extra hit points to the enemies, lower player health, and maybe add more enemies. But I wouldn't really consider that more difficult. It's like a lazy way to add difficulty.
Right.
Instead, maybe if a game is just designed to be difficult, the mechanics go and work around with that instead of just the sliders, which just kind of slop on extra points on top of everything or take away, which isn't really that fun.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are echoing that they feel that there's some ways where difficulty is fair and some ways where it's not. I think there's definitely some level where difficulty does it. There is a fair amount of that you can do by just changing some of the numbers, but it does reach a limit pretty quickly. That's right. Changing some of the numbers might enable or disable certain strategies, right? If you can defeat this opponent with one sword strike, then you never have to dodge their attack, right? But now if it takes 3 sword strikes, then you must learn to dodge their attack, right? Because you're not going to be able to get 3 sword strikes in on them before they attack you back. Something like that, right? So there is something there, but yeah, a lot of people are probably thinking about this, that you get lazy difficulty settings when you get them, so that can feel bad. Um, there's the accessibility debate also going on, where some people can't improve their motor skills, so they need something else, but they might still feel a lot of joy in defeating that boss, even though it's actually harder for them. So they've just decided to select a game that's harder for them than it is for other people, or could be, and doesn't mean it's necessarily like that.
Hey, Professor, can I add to that too?
Yes, of course.
Personally, I replayed Metal Gear on like super hard difficulty before the new version came out.
So it did have difficulty
And,
settings, yes.
It did have difficulty settings, and the game it just felt more tedious instead of more difficult because I die faster. The weapons wouldn't do as much damage. The gameplay itself was very hard with maneuverability. Snake had to always repair all of his wounds after every fight I got into, so it like made me play specifically stealth, and I'm more of a gung ho kind of guy, and that kind of takes away from it making the game better. It makes the game, I guess, more just harder in general with like experience and how to deal with things. And I feel like certain games, like for example, Phantom Pain, like the current Phantom Pain, is very different from Snake Eater, the original one that I played, the remastered. Like one game's open world, you can do whatever you want the way you want to. All the characters react the same, and then in Snake Eater, it's like either you do it stealthily or you're going to have to like, go through a lot of stuff.
So that's interesting that you say that, because you could say that Snake Eater, the one you played, right, with the extra hard difficulty setting, right, very hard, and Dark Souls,
Yeah, it was very hard.
Are similar in a way, because, well, you're just supposed to die a lot and then learn and then do it perfectly, right? But there may be, what is the difference here? Was it because the play experience was designed around it in a certain way? Was it because Dark Souls prepared you to die a lot by just having a reputation that said, yeah, you suck, you're going to die? I wonder what is different.
I feel with Snake Eater, Kojima wanted to give the players like an idea of what tactical espionage is in like the field, and especially like in the forest. So he gave us like camouflage and stuff. And then if you compare Dark Souls, it's more like you die, you retry, and you keep dying until you understand what to do. So there's a learning curve to it. I think with Snake Eater, it's more like either you understand it or you'll never finish the game. Personally, that's what I think.
Okay. And that game, it's also much more of a narrative game, where you don't want to be messing with the pace so much by having to fight a lot. Meanwhile, Dark Souls is an example of a game where there's not a whole lot of story or plot or cutscenes or anything, so it's not really interrupting the story by having you die repeatedly for 30 minutes before you move on to the next area. Where in a more narrative game, like Snake Eater, you're gonna kind of miss out on the pacing. It's like if an action movie just, or it's like if in a movie you had an action scene that took an hour, but wasn't really plot dense, didn't have anything to do with the plot, so you just wasted an hour, there maybe it was exciting, but you also just didn't get any plot for an hour, and then you suddenly go back into a calm plot driving scene, and it's like, wait, what the heck? We have a story? I forgot we had a story. It's been an hour. So that could be an issue. Somebody asked, Joshua asked, could adding easier difficulties to a game whose intention and identity is to be difficult count as an example of ludonarrative dissonance? No, because it's not really part of the narrative, I would say. If it is part of the narrative, that let's say that you are supposed to suck and you're supposed to be dying, and you're supposed to be struggling, then maybe you're supposed to be struggling, but then you aren't, right? So if the game paints you as a poor person, but then you end up getting a lot of money early in the game.
Awkward silence.
So if you, for example, have a very generous rewards at the beginning of the game in a game where you're supposed to be poor because of a difficulty setting or something like that, then that could potentially lead to like a little bit of a ludonarrative dissonance. But otherwise, you know, if it's not related to the plot, it's not creating ludonarrative dissonance exactly, I would say. It's a little different. Okay, so there's been a lot of discussion here. Interesting points, guys. You know, some people argue that it's about a community. You want everyone to have the same thing because you want them to have community. But I would also argue with Dark Souls specifically, that game has options to control the difficulty. Dark Souls has difficulty controls. It allows players to play a harder or easier game themselves without having to select an option that says difficulty, because it has RPG mechanics and because it has co-op. Since Dark Souls features RPG mechanics that allow you to build advantage over the game, if you are sucking, you can just get stronger in the game, and then you don't actually need skill anymore. Guys, Dark Souls takes no skill to beat.
I would agree. It's just trial and error.
I used magic. I didn't have to dodge anything. I just hold my wand up and cast a spell, and I can destroy a bunch of, you know, bosses that way. So I think the argument with Dark Souls, you know, being a skill-based game and, you know, you have to get good to beat the game, it's not true. It does have difficulty options. They're just not like labeled like that, right? So there are ways that it's easier or harder to play the game. And two people might say they beat Dark Souls, but they beat it in different ways. One person used co-op, one person used magic, one person used a bow, which is not great, but whatever, you know. And one person used the Zweihander Chaos +5 or whatever. Anyway, and they have different experiences because of that. So I think the argument that keeping the play experience the same is not exactly right. It's not the same difficulty. It depends a lot on what you've done. Okay? But it does feel good. It feels good that you don't have a difficulty setting, but you can still beat it, right? Because when you do have the difficulty setting, then you have that option of making it easier for yourself or making it harder for yourself. I think having you know, hardcore modes and stuff like that is nice as well, though. It's always fun, especially if the developers basically just tell you, hey, we designed the game for this mode. This is our intended experience, right? If you want to do something else, you sure, but this is the intended gameplay experience. So there's always that, right? You can target a specific option or specific setting. Bungie always said that Halo was meant to be played on heroic difficulty. Not legendary, not normal, but heroic. And I think that's about right. Legendary difficulty is too slow and it takes a long time, you know, it's a little too much. So, you know, even though it's the highest difficulty, it's not the best one. Because you're supposed to feel like a strong soldier who's able to beat a lot of opponents, you know. You're supposed to feel strong, and it doesn't feel the same way on other difficulty settings, to me. Right? But there's there's extra challenges in that game for people who want to do that as well. Yeah. And you know what? For some people, the correct difficulty for them might be normal or might be easy. So there are good ways to have difficulty settings, right? See, people have very fond memories of the difficulty settings in Halo, but there's also other people with not so fond memories of other things. It's hard to separate them, right? Sometimes what is fair and what is not, or what feels good and what isn't, it just depends on how you felt about the rest of the game, to be honest, just like the game design as a whole. Okay, okay. Super active discussion here, guys. Awesome stuff. It looks like we're actually about at the halfway point. So do you guys want to take a short break? Let's just do 10 minutes, okay? Or something like that, okay? So, it's almost 2:40, so let's come back at... Okay. All right, let's come back at 2... Okay, it looks like you don't need that much of a break. Let's come back at 2:45? Return here at 2:45. So just really short break. All right, we'll give it a pause. All right, so welcome back, folks. Let's continue. So our next topic of discussion is our next narrative element of game design, or dramatic element of game design, is play, which is hard to define. Play doesn't always have rules, even. Play is what we would call more freeform type of activity, right? It could be using your imagination. One way you can describe play, according to this paper here linked, this book, okay, is that play is free movement within a more rigid structure. Kind of like one of those banned children's jungle gyms that we aren't allowed to have anymore, where it's just like a grid of boxes, a grid of bars, like a Rubik's Cube. Kind of like that. Okay. So play is opportunities for players to use imagination, to use social skills, to use free-form thinking and interactions when in order to do something they can make a objective themselves. Okay, so play can be serious as well. Play can be as we play a sport, right? Or play can develop skills. Play can be something that you do and helps you develop real skills. Children play and it develops their motor skills, and it may develop their social skills if they're playing pretend with friends in the schoolyard, and they have to communicate that. What superpower do they have? So on. Okay. Being able to design games that allow players to self-select their notion of fun, and play in a way that they choose to feel free within that game, is a lot of. It's really nice. It allows players to be engaged themselves by picking what they want to do, right? And lets them use their imagination. Pretty neat. How do you do that? What you need to do to create play is you need to build toys. You need to think of your game as a toy. You need to think of your game as a set of pieces that a player must interact with and work with, and wants to interact with and work with. So let's talk about this other game here called The Sims, which some people might say, is that even a game? and some people might say, "Oh yeah, that's my favorite game." So think about The Sims and think about how people play The Sims. And if you'd like, tell me, how do you play The Sims? You build a pool and take out the ladder. Okay, that's play. That's play. That's doing what you want. That's free movement within a rigid structure. Okay, you're doing what you want in the game. How does the game let you play? How does the game create narratives through play?
Think he knew. I'll survive. Tosh.
It lets you create narrative due to you being in charge of every, well, not every aspect, but a large majority of your Sims' lives. So their jobs, their schools, relationships, and all that. So let's say I wanted to create a narrative regarding tragedy. I have a Sim I raised from a baby into a young adult. I let him meet this girl or male Sim. They get together. I kill off the male Sim, and yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And I leave him widowed. That's creating a tragic narrative via the game. And if I wanted to make it lighthearted, I could make it so, okay, this Sim that I recently widowed, I give him a job and he becomes the CEO of this company. And now it's gone from like a tragic underdog story to a hopeful, uplifting story.
And how does that happen? Do you just decide before you even start the game that you're gonna make all of this? How does it proceed? Do you usually plan that far ahead of exactly how your game is gonna go?
Sometimes I plan that far, or other times maybe I do have a plan that I planned beforehand. And due to just how things happen, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Or maybe like a new one of the generated NPCs comes in. I'm like, oh, I like this character. Let me add this character in. And they tend to like change the story. So maybe I had something planned out, and just the way the NPCs work inside the simulation, it could just change your idea and make new plans for you.
Right. So it's the game is talking to you. You and the game are working together to create these stories, right? It's not just that you're sitting there with a pen and writing everything that you want. It helps inspire you. Anyone else want to share anything? How does that happen? You know,
I've never played The Sims.
That's fine. So let's talk about some of the mechanics in this game, and that can help shed light on that. So you, in The Sims, you control, indirectly control these characters. You don't directly control them, so you don't, walk around as them, but you're kind of in the position of almost like a god or like a movie director or a voice in their head, and you can tell them suggestions, you can tell them to do things, okay? But if you don't, they have their own free will, and they will go do whatever they want. So your Sims, you create them with a certain personality, you create them with certain life goals, and that helps modify some of the parameters of how they will behave in-game. And it also helps you decide what kind of story you're going to tell with them. The Sims have their own needs, so every character needs to go to the bathroom. Every character has they have a bar that describes, a stat bar that describes how much they need to go to the bathroom right now. They have a stat bar that describes how much they want to have fun right now. Stat bar that describes how much they want to just be comfortable and like sit down somewhere on the couch like that. How much do they want to socialize with other people, and different Sims might have different social batteries because of their personality, right? Some might need more social interaction, and some might need less. Every Sim needs to eat. Every Sim needs to sleep. And there's consequences if they don't eat. There's consequences if they don't sleep. There's consequences for all of these things. So the game mechanics are set up as kind of as a simulation, right? So it says these Sims have these needs. If this sim is really hungry and really tired, they need to pick to do something to do, and they might pick to eat instead of sleeping. Okay, and then they might pass out on the floor because they were so tired and it's been a long night. And these are not things that the player selects. They will do things on their own. If you do nothing, here the player is selecting actions to suggest, right? But even if you do nothing, these sims will just live out their lives on their own. You can play this game with pretty much almost 0 players. You can almost not play the game and it will still play itself. And in this way, it's kind of like a improv, or it's kind of like a sitcom where you can kind of just watch stuff happen all on its own. You can make stuff up, right? It's kind of like a dollhouse. The Sims is a playable sitcom. A lot of people play it in a way where they might make their friends. They might make characters representing all of their friends, their whole friend circle, and then maybe make them all live in the same house together. And then they see they see their friends get up to funny business, right? So one of them goes and gets in some financial trouble because they're not making enough money. One of them they go to school. One of them gets a girlfriend, and then they start having conflict because there's only one bathroom, and then there's too many people using the bathroom at the same time. Oh no. Okay, little things like that happen dynamically in the game as you play it. Okay, then that the maybe as a player you see that they're having conflict, and then you might improvise off of that. So you might see that you had a group of 3 friends, and then it started to get overcrowded once they started bringing their partner in, and then one of them maybe is getting jealous. So you decide to make it as though there's like a murder, right? So you as a player decide, oh, I'm gonna play off of this, and I'm gonna make a murder. So this is the motivation for murdering the partner. Okay, and then the Grim Reaper comes and takes away the soul of that murdered partner. Okay, and maybe one of the characters falls in love with the Grim Reaper because the Grim Reaper is a character in the game. And these kinds of things can happen, and it's pretty interesting that you can have a whole lot of stuff come out of the game as though it's all acting. It's all live improv session, and you're part of that. You're part of the improv. Oh, I'm sorry. I've been missing the chat here. Sorry, guys. What is going on? Perhaps you're Jigsaw and you put them through traps. Yeah. The furniture layout is bothering you. Okay, yeah. You guys do get to make you do get to make the houses. You get to make situations. You get to make a whole bunch of neat stuff, right? So yeah, it's really interesting. The Sims can create stories with you as a player, and that's partially because the Sims don't always do what you expect. Sometimes these Sims do things that almost don't make sense, or they're kind of funny, and usually they'll do something that seems stupid, it seems unintelligent, but it can still be enjoyable. It can be funny. Oh, put the chat back in here. Zach says, is The Sims niche? It seems boring. It's not. I'm not sure I would say niche because it's so popular. It's extremely popular. The Sims is an extremely popular game. But it is very different. So if that's what you mean by niche, it is very different from other games. So there's not a lot of competitors. There's not a lot of other games like it. It depends. Sometimes some people like Minecraft and some people don't like Minecraft. Some people like playing Minecraft in creative mode and just building. You can kind of do that in The Sims as well. You can just build. Some people mod The Sims and stuff like that. Yeah, demand for a game like The Sims is not low. Oh my god, it is crazy high and it makes a ton of money. You have no idea how much money it makes. Like extreme money. The Sims is very important to the success of EA as a company. Okay, let's talk about other. Let's talk about another key element that can make your game interesting. Okay. So, premise. We talked a lot about the premise of Death Stranding, and if that wasn't interesting, guys, I don't know what is. That was a really strange game. A lot of that strangeness is in the premise. A good premise gives a good context for the formal elements of your game, for the actual gameplay. So that's for sure. The premise in Monopoly is that you're a bunch of aspiring landlords, okay? And you buy and sell and develop land, and then that's what you do, right? You're working in the real estate market. Okay? Premise includes setting. But what is premise? Premise is it helps players immerse themselves in a game. It helps them become part of the game. Premise contextualizes choices. The way that you describe the premise of a game or show the premise of a game changes how a player feels when they're playing the game. Okay? The premise of Pokemon in the Pokemon games is really meant there to support the gameplay, right? They have the gameplay, they have and they have a premise that you are a Pokemon trainer and you capture these Pokemon and you train them and then you make them better and then you fight them against each other and that kind of thing. So make sure whatever you come up with is connected to your gameplay. Don't come up with a premise that you're, a legendary hero or something like that, and then in your game, what you're doing is mostly just jumping and running, and it doesn't feel the same, right? So maybe think about connecting them a bit better. And think about making a premise that supports your gameplay and supports your message, supports your theme. A premise is not a premise is not the same thing as a story. A premise is a static state, a starting point. A story is what happens over time. Characters. Okay, characters can really sell a game. If you guys weren't aware, a lot of games now are basically just selling off the characters because they make a character that is interesting. We're excited to learn more about them. We're excited to see where things go. It's not really about the world as much as it's about the character. So even if that character was put in another place, we would still follow it, right? When we look at Tomb Raider, the Lara Croft is more important than a lot of the other parts of the world. Just the character of Lara Croft is really interesting, right? When you look at Pokemon games, the Pokemon are really a star, really a major star. And some of the Pokemon trainers, some of the gym leaders and stuff like that, people really like as well. But not every character, just some of them, right? And that can be a major selling point. When you guys play one of those hero shooters like Overwatch or what's the other one? Marvel Rivals or whatever, you're playing it for the characters. You're drawn to that there is a certain character in the game. When you play Super Smash Brothers, you're drawn to a certain character, right? Now, story-wise, narrative-wise, a strong character can really help. If you have a good character and people can relate to it and people love that character, you can even have a good character and a mediocre story, and you'll still be all right. So sometimes that's something you need. You also, in games, uniquely, you have player characters. So player characters are your entry point into the game. They are part of your experience with the game. So you might develop characters with motivations, their own motivations, and their own desires, their own goals, their own flaws, and things like that. But you might also have your player playing as that character, and then sometimes there can be conflict where your player doesn't feel the same way as your player character, depending on how heavy or light you are with your story. Okay. Some players get really attached to a character even when they're pretty much a blank slate. Like the Master Chief is not that strong a character, but there is a lot of stuff outside of the games that does strengthen him as a character, for sure. There's a lot of stuff outside of the games themselves. In the game, there's not that much character development for the Master Chief. There's no, whatever. I love Halo, guys, but in the game, there's not that much. He's literally just a strong guy. He's just strong and he doesn't say much, but he's strong and we like him, and that's fine. It's fine. He's the strong guy. He's the Halo. Halo isn't afraid of anything. Great. Cool. If you want to make a character really quickly, guys, for your game, you can try to just use the D&D formula. D&D is Dungeons and Dragons is a role-playing game that is a structure and a rule set to help people tell stories. So it has really quick outlines for different things, right? It has a template for creating your character, and in there it comes with stuff like, okay, what is your character's name? What is their personality traits? What is their alignment morally? What do they feel is right and not right? What is their ideal? What are their core principles? What is the essence of that character's being? Okay? Is it, and it might be flawed as well, but it might be connected to that your character has a flaw. So your character needs to have a flaw. You should not have a character without flaws, because then they're not relatable. And when they're not relatable, we remember that it's just fiction. We remember that it's not real. We need our character to be relatable. We need our character to feel real. So you got to make flaws. And a bond as well in Dungeons and Dragons. What is your character connected to? Who are they connected to? What people are their people? That kind of stuff. Okay. And these things, some of these things can change over time, right? These can change as part of character development, which you can do, right? Flaws are really important to that process of character development, because we like to work on those flaws. That's a really good part of character development. It's really fun. In addition to defining who your character is, if you want to have a story, you should add a goal or goals and things blocking that goal or goals. So you need to have something stopping your character from getting what they want. And now you have a plot. Story is how events unfold over time, right? So you have a character, they have their own personality, they have their flaws, they have a goal. Maybe they need to overcome their flaws or work on their flaws just a bit, face it, acknowledge it, in order to defeat the obstacle in the way of their goal, Now you're creating an arc, a character arc, and that's part of a story. So a story is how things unfold and evolve over time. Players can get invested in a game story. They want to know what happens next, right? They want to know where this is going. There's a lot of mystery going on. There's questions that are unanswered. They want to know more about those answers to those questions, right? Or there's twists and surprises, and you never know what's going to happen next. Okay? The difference between a premise and a story is that a premise is a static entry point, and a story is the evolution, right? So we saw this film, a little clip of it, Pacific Rim. Do we recall that? In that film, there were 2 pilots in each Jaeger. Why was that? Do we remember that? Why were there 2 pilots?
Because one pilot can't handle piloting a Jaeger by themselves.
No, that's the reason that is explained in the film, and that's true. But let's ask, why did that need to be? Does that help us feel that it's more realistic necessarily? It does. It is interesting. Why did the creators do that? Yes. So we need 2 pilots because one pilot isn't enough to pilot this giant monster fighting robot. One pilot isn't enough also because the writers want to give us a reason to be able to hear them talking to each other and communicating about what they're going to do. Especially, they're going to be alone at some point in the movie. The 2 of them are going to be alone, and they're fighting, and we as an audience need to be able to hear something, right? Because if it's just a solo pilot, they might not say anything. We also have a new pilot and an older pilot, and the older pilot is teaching the newer pilot, so they're introducing somebody else to this world, which helps because we're watching that. They're basically introducing us into that world. Yes. They also have 2 people so that they can have the teamwork dynamic that it kind of shows and builds into a theme in the film, a theme of working together. So working together to achieve unstoppable, to defeat unstoppable opponents, right? Together you can do it. They can give exposition. They can also have conflict in themselves, right? So that there can be raising the stakes by having them fight with each other. If they wanted to, they could have the 2 pilots disagree, and then the robot doesn't work. And that's pretty cool. If the pilots disagree, the robot doesn't work, they both are punished for that because they're in the middle of a fight, right? It's just like how you guys, you're working in a group together. If you constantly fight, you're not achieving your goals. You're all gonna go under, right? You're all gonna fail the assignment. So you need to work together. You need to learn to work together. So this movie has kind of some themes of like cooperation, human achievement. It's not just those 2 either. Although it does seem like everything is those 2, they don't really get to this other angle, but there's all sorts of other people and support staff helping to make this happen, right? There's all these people who built this robot and are maintaining this robot for sure, just to be able to defeat the monsters, right? So there's that. Dustin said, were you supposed to involve color in your screenplay? No. No color. What do you mean? What do you mean by color? It should be just text. You can describe the color of something if it's very relevant. Like if it's relevant to the story, you can describe the color of an object.
Yeah, I was gonna say that Dustin's probably confusing the screenplay with the storyboard that we got in game art.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's not the same. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the color between orange and blue, that's not a screenplay element, actually. Okay, yeah. So that color stuff, that was a choice after the screenplay, right? So the screenplay is done, there's multiple people working on the job, right? Um, that's an art choice, not a writing choice. Cool. Yeah, that's right. So a lot of that stuff is not part of a screenplay. Yeah. No, that's cool. That's cool. Let's talk about another premise with giant fighting robots, guys. So there's an anime from 1995 with these giant fighting robots. They protect a city. There's big monsters that threaten the city, and the humans there. And so they send these giant fighting robots to go walk into the ocean and fight them. Kind of same kaiju story. Okay, but that is just on the surface to get you hooked, to get you interested. Okay, this anime is not it's not really so much action. Okay, it's a bit different. Um, so in this show, the pilots connect to the nervous system of the robot. So the robot is almost organic. And you, as a pilot, are stuck in a tube, and then the tube is injected into the spinal column of this robot, um, and you and the nervous system of the robot become connected such that you can feel their nerve endings. So the robots have nerve endings, um, and the pilots can feel what the robot feels. So if a robot is injured, if it breaks its arm, then the pilots feel that their arm is broken. They feel all the pain of that. Now, why on earth would a robot be designed like that? You got to ask, right? Why would a fighting robot be designed like that? There are justifications inside the show. There are valid reasons why it ended up this way, why it ends up like that, right? They are connected, through through their um, nervous system. Okay, they can feel more or less connected to the robot. That's right, and there are some other things like that. But anyway, Dustin says, "Do you have to know what the show is?" No, you don't. I'm telling you the relevant information, so you just need to listen. Um, so these pilots have a certain ratio of how connected they are to this robot. And so instead of needing to cooperate to operate the machine, like in a Pacific Rim, they have single pilots, and the single pilot needs to focus. They need to be focused and mentally stable. Um, so there's many traumatic events that put these pilots into a not very mentally stable state. Um, and it doesn't help that the pilots are also like 14-year-old children. Um, so these 14-year-old children are feeling the sensations of having their face stabbed, of breaking their arm, of having their leg cut off, stuff like that. It's pretty horrifying, and they react, and that reaction causes the robot to not work, because if you are not mentally stable, then your robot does not work, and it makes things worse. Okay, so why is it like that? Why on earth is any of this premise like that? Okay, so there's reasons in the universe. These people are the only people who can pilot these robots because of XYZ reason and whatever. But really, the reason that the writers make it like this is this is a story about characters and about looking at their own stories internally. So this is where we have a lot of introspection. The characters need to look inside themselves and find out their own motivations and discover their own identity. This the character's identity is being developed. And the young age of 14 is an age where people are discovering who they are, right? They're trying to figure out who they are. Some people are maybe too far in one way. Some people are trying to pretend to be someone they're not, right? They'll just come up with something. Oh yeah, I'm gonna be an emo or something like that, and they're just trying really hard to do that. Who knows? But it's an age where they're trying to figure themselves out, and this is a very psychological show, which is all about examining that, okay, and putting them in stressful situations to force that basically, and make it even more intense, that they need to figure themselves out and find that calm and find that motivation. They're asking questions like, why am I doing this? I'm just doing this because my parents told me to, basically. This is so hard. I'm being thrust into something that I didn't choose, that, I don't know what all this stuff is. It's really hard. I don't know what to do. And it feels really, life or death. It feels really important, right? And these are the kinds of questions that it's exploring. And so it has them on their own. It can isolate these characters. There's a lot of times when the robot shuts off and the characters are just inside the robot on their own, left alone to their thoughts. The cameras shut off so they can't see the outside. The way that they are inserted into the robot, they're inside like a suspended fluid, so it's kind of like a sensory deprivation chamber. Really horrible. What are you guys doing? What is the chat doing? Just come on, guys. What are you doing? Anyway, think about your premise and think about, what that premise does for you. Think about what you can do, right? Pick your premise to help you convey your message, right? Or pick your premise to help support your game mechanics, whatever it may be, right? You want to put your player characters in an extremely stressful situation, right? Then make your player characters, a criminal, like a robber, okay? But you're a robber who can't lie. So how do you avoid the police in a way where you're not gonna have to just tell them, oh yeah, I stole everything, I did it. That might be fun, right? Damien says, can the screenplay be about a cinematic for a game rather than the gameplay itself? Yeah, it can be a cutscene in a game, yeah. But it's your own game. You're gonna make a game. Make something. Just come up with an interesting premise, guys. A premise that makes difficult situations. You want to make a premise that makes difficult situations, right? Make a giant robot piloting, but make it a team sport, a group project. Imagine if fighting monsters was a group project. Now what are you gonna do? That's impossible, right? Okay. Now, I promised you guys we'd also talk about assignment 1 and look at an example. Let's do that now. So let's talk about The Matrix. So assignment 1 asks you to write a screenplay. Let's look at an example from the film The Matrix, okay? And we'll also watch the scene associated with that out of the recording, not in the recording. But let's look at the screenplay. Where do I have it? Oh, I have it somewhere here. I think I have it. Yeah, that's right, Darren. Criminality shouldn't be a personality. That's right. Yeah, you shouldn't make that a personality. Well, it's not a real personality. That's true. Disdain for or disrespect for authority or like or law may be a personality trait, but crime itself isn't one. That's for sure. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's see, how well can you guys read this? Probably all right. Have we all seen The Matrix? I'm curious. What you guys, if you have or have not. Can I do a poll here? Don't worry, you don't need to have seen it because we're literally just going to be looking at the first minutes. Oh, there's a poll. Nice and easy. Okay, let's look at the screenplay. So remember, I've asked you guys to produce 5 minutes. So about 5 pages. Okay, let's look at this. The Matrix, from 1998. So this is a bit of a more developed version of the screenplay, which has a bit more heavy-handed direction than I would expect from you guys. I don't want you guys to put as much direction in like the camera and stuff like that, really. You can. You're fine. It's fine if you do. Anyway, let's do it. So, fade in. That's what I mean. You guys don't really need to put. It's not relevant. On a computer screen so close that it has no boundaries, a blinding cursor pulses in electric darkness like a heart coursing with phosphorus light, burning beneath the derma of black neon glass. A phone begins to ring. These are capitalized just because they're important props or sound effects. We hear as though we were making the call. The cursor continues to throb, relentlessly patient until... Yeah? Data slashes across the screen. Is everything in place? Trace program running on screen. We listen to the phone conversation as though we were on the third line. The man's name is Cypher, the woman Trinity. So this, you need to remember, the player will not experience this. You know, your audience will not know this. This is only relevant to basically, for the people reading the script to know that the woman's voice is Trinity and the man's voice is Cypher. But at some point later in the script, it's gonna need to tell you, it's gonna need to say the names of the characters so that the audience can actually see that. Yeah, this is a bit older. Yeah, this is very old. But it's fine. It's mostly the same. The entire screen width, racing columns of numbers, shimmering like green electric river as they rush at a 10-digit phone number in the top corner. You weren't supposed to relieve me. I know, but I felt like taking a shift. There aren't so many directions on how these characters should be saying it because the actors are supposed to figure it out, and that's fine, from the dialogue. The area code is identified. The first 3 numbers are suddenly fixed, leaving only 7 following columns. You like him, don't you? You like watching him? We begin moving toward the screen, closing in, as each digit is matched one by one, snapping into place like the wheels of a slot machine. Don't be ridiculous. We're gonna kill him. Do you know that? He's going to die just like the others. Morpheus believes he's the one. Do you? It doesn't matter what I believe. You don't, do you? If you have something to say, I suggest you say it to Morpheus. I intend to, believe me. Someone has to. Did you hear that? Hear what? Trace complete. Call Origin 312-555-0690. Are you sure this line is clean? Yeah, of course I'm sure. I better go. She hangs up as we pass through the numbers, entering the nether world of the computer screen. Suddenly, a flashlight cuts open the darkness, and we find ourselves in the heart of the city hotel. So this is a scene change. It's trying to say that we've transitioned to a different place. And that's fine. You guys don't need... I don't need you to actually keep everything in exactly one set. You can change sets. When you don't need to keep it all in one place. So just 5 pages. We will have dialogue. There is dialogue here. You do need dialogue. You absolutely need dialogue. Okay. Narration is optional. Yeah, you don't need narration. There is no narration here. This voiceover is not... It's not narration. It's the characters talking to each other. Right? It's voiceover. Right? It's off-screen. Because they're talking off-screen. You'll see what I mean when you see the scene. Okay? So, no, we've changed scenes. So it tells us with the slug line, interior, the name of the location, if it's inside or outside, and the time, night time. So the name of the location is Heart of the City Hotel. We don't necessarily see this as an audience, although you'll see that in the actual film, they did make it so that we can tell what location we're at. They did actually show that. Anyway, the hotel was abandoned after a fire licked its way across the polyester carpeting, destroying several rooms as it spooled soot up the walls and ceiling, leaving patterns of permanent shadow. So when it says this, what it's talking about is showing just what it looks like. This is the writer describing what we are seeing right now. So we are seeing an abandoned hotel, and we're following that has had fire in it. We follow 4 armed police officers using flashlights as they creep down the blackened hall and ready themselves on either side of room 303. The biggest of them violently kicks in the door. The other cop pours in behind them, guns thrust before them. Police, freeze! The room is almost devoid of furniture. There is a fold-up table in the chair with a phone, a modem, and a PowerBook computer. The only light in the room is the glow of the computer. Sitting there, her hand still on the keyboard, is Trinity, a woman in black leather. Again, the audience still can't tell that. They just see a woman. Hands behind your head. Now, do it! She slowly puts her hand behind her head. And then we cut to outside. A black sedan with tinted windows glides in through the police cruisers. Agent Smith, Agent Brown, and Agent Jones get out of the car. They wear dark suits and sunglasses, even at night. They are also always hardwired, a small Secret Service earphones in one ear, the cord coiling back into their shirt collars. Lieutenant? Oh, shit. Lieutenant, you were given specific orders. I'm just doing my job. You give me that jurisdiction and you can cram it up your ass. The orders were for your protection. The lieutenant laughs. I think we can handle one little girl. Agent Smith nods to the Agent Brown as they start towards the hotel. I sent 2 units. They're bringing her down now. No, Lieutenant. Your men are already dead. So that's pretty great. Guys, are we interested in knowing more? Right? There is this woman in black is very deadly, apparently. There's some strange kind of crime going on. There's police trying to make a raid on this hotel. We don't know what's going on. We heard over this phone conversation, right? Like we were listening in on this phone conversation, and we don't understand at all what the heck they're talking about. But they're talking about the one. They're talking about they're gonna kill him. They're talking about Morpheus. what are they doing, right? They're being tracked. They're doing something maybe illegal or against the law or against authority, right? They're afraid they're being tracked, and then the police burst in, right? Okay, so we're interested here. How long is this? This we looked at 3 pages. We looked at 3 pages and like a little bit. So 3 and a third of a page. Okay? So let's see how long that is. Let's watch that much of the film. So hang on a sec. Let me pause the recording and let's watch. All right. So don't overthink it when writing your screenplays, okay? Just try and get something down and then proofread it, send it to someone, have them read it, and then work on it from there, right? Make something and then you can make it better. I know this is our first time making stuff. I'm not expecting genius. So yes, we did look at 5 pages of The Matrix here, and we looked even beyond that at some, the scenes that we were seeing there. And yes, this 5 pages already is really good, but that's not really the expectation. I'm not expecting you to make this. I'm expecting you to make something, and then just work on it and practice your skills. Practice just writing what you see and hear as an audience. Practice writing in the correct format with when you have a character speaking, they're on a new line and centered and that kind of thing, right? That's all we need. Okay? It does need to be something that draws from life. You can draw from life in lots of different ways, but that's the best way to make it actually good. Even if you think your life is boring, there's things you can draw from there. Okay, let's go. What does Damien have to say? Yes?
Okay, so I know this is unrelated to class, but it has something to do with my board game.
Oh, okay. That's not relevant.
I don't have it.
No, we can't talk about
Joss,
the
your
board game
audio's
here.
back feeding.
Oh yeah, hang on. We can't talk about the board game here. This is not the appropriate place for that. Your board game is in your game design class, not in your narrative design class. Okay?
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, not part of the class. It can be outside of the class when we're done. Okay. When we're done. Yeah, guys, just give it a try, right? It can be it'll be fun. Just try writing, get it down. So when you jumped out the window and fell, you could change it to you flew instead. Yeah, you could make it a superhero story. Yeah, or you could make it there's another reason why you jumped out, right? You could do a lot of things. That sounds fun, right? Why would someone jump out a window? Or what would be an incredibly ridiculous reason for someone to jump out a window? What would be a funny reason, or what would be a scary reason that they feared something that was chasing them more than the thought of jumping out the window, right? There's lots of ways it could be interesting. Okay, and you don't have to make like a serious story. You can make a funny story, right? It could be comedy as well. We have superhero stories, but then we also have less superheroes, right? Like Kick-Ass, if you know that guy. You have Deadpool, right? Less super. All right, here. So let's switch over to our slides again. Where are our slides? Okay, there we go. And slides. All right. So to sum things up, folks, consider your themes, consider what your game is about, including the subtext. Consider what dramatic elements you're going to pick to be important for your game. Like, is it going to be through characters? Is it going to be through premise? Is it going to be through just building like a sandbox for your players to play in? What is going to be the fun part of your game? What is going to be interesting about your game? Is it going to be story? I don't recommend story because it takes a long time to develop that. So I recommend one of the other four. Okay. What to do? Keep an eye out on Blackboard and work on assignment 1. We looked at an example. There's another example in there as well. And feel free to check out other screenplays for other media that you enjoyed as well. That's totally fine. Dustin said this only has to be a premise, right? No, a premise is not the same as a screenplay. A premise is just like the initial conditions of your world. Your screenplay might include describing a premise, but it isn't a premise. You'll need a premise before you write your screenplay. Like the premise is what your screenplay is about, even like what your story is about in the first place. You know, what's the situation before your story. Can you base your stuff off of things you've watched or seen? Sure, that's fine. Whatever, that's fine. You know, include some stuff that you experience and that you are familiar with, preferably as well. But yeah, okay. That's it for now, guys. We're out of time. Take care. Is
Could I ask one more quick question?
Yeah, sure.
So the screenwriting, can it be at any point in, let's say, the thing we're describing, or does it have to be the start of something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be anywhere you want. Just yeah,
Okay.
put it anywhere you want. It doesn't need to be the start of something. You do need to make sure that we at some point are able to understand it. Like, we need to be able to understand it regardless of where
Okay.
we are, right? A lot of films start in the middle of something, like what we just watched. It started in the middle of something. We didn't understand what's going on, right? We didn't start with our character saying, oh, it all started at this time when everything blah, blah, blah. We didn't start with a history. So you don't have to do that either.
Gotcha.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Yes.
See you tomorrow.
In design class, it'll also be on Discord. Yep, that's correct. Yep. Okay, thank you.